Insight Podcast.
First podcast of the Insight Software Budgeting Podcast Series. Today I'm joined with John Lovar and John Hilborn, our in-house budgeting gurus, who will help us understand current budgeting scenarios and will be addressing common questions that many budgeting managers face today. John Lovar has 15 years of experience in accounting, finance, and technology. He's worked as a product specialist at insightsoftware.com, a CPA at Ernst & Young, and as a manager of financial reporting at a multi-billion-dollar organization. John Hilborn has 6 years of experience in accounting, finance, and technology. His experience includes working as a product specialist at insightsoftware.com, a CPA at KPMG, and as a manager of financial reporting at a multi-billion-dollar organization. Both John Lovar and John Hilborn have similar backgrounds. Both individuals were former end users of J.D. Edwards as well as Insight. This unique experience lends itself well, as John and John can easily identify with our customers. Our first podcast is Breeze Through Your Forecast. So I'm just going to jump in and start with the questions here, John. How do traditional budget managers view their GL balances and budgeting numbers?
Thank you, Heather. Traditionally, managers will review their budget and actual numbers using reports that are generated within their enterprise tools. So they're commonly very static reports, and not very dynamic.
Another typical way is either some sort of Excel dump of budgets versus actuals, and then prettying it up in Excel, or you may be using some sort of third-party tool as is, but typically with those you'd have to load in the actuals into some sort of data cube or refreshing them in order to get live actuals versus your budget.
Okay, so in both of those you're not really reading real-time information, you're reading whenever you dump that information into Excel.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. So how are most companies handling their year-end processes now?
Well, when you're talking about year-end forecasting processes, they're usually, like John Hilborn just mentioned, exporting a lot of data right out of J.D. Edwards.
Okay.
And then manipulating that data in Excel. So when we're talking about the scenario today with regard to forecasts, we're looking at a typical situation where end users would like to see the combination of actual ledger information side by side with their budget type of information. And so that requires often exporting actuals separately from your export of your budget information, and then using the Excel features to sort of consolidate and pivot that information so it can all be viewed in one simple report.
Got it.
Yeah, to add to that, I think that just getting your annual budget information into your ERP once a year is usually a feat in and of itself. So if you're doing any kind of monthly or quarterly forecast, most of the time I've seen that's still typically offline and in Excel somewhere, just because it's too much of a pain to put it in every month.
So then typically, if I'm a budgeting manager or a forecasting manager, I might have a few different Excel sheets that I have to combine at the end once I have the forecast that I need to upload?
Yes.
Okay.
And then you end up spending a lot of time reconciling that back to your real-time data, which can be constantly changing because of journal entries and whatever else is changing in that environment.
Okay. So what are those typical steps in preparing your end-of-year forecast? What do you start with, and how do you walk through that process?
Well, you'll typically have some sort of data extraction, and a lot of people have garnered ways to get the data out of J.D. Edwards and into spreadsheets.
Okay.
And there are a variety of tools that will do that, but somehow, some way, they get that data out of J.D. Edwards, put it into the spreadsheet, and then from there, they'll use those features that are available in Excel to pivot the data or manipulate the data if they have to.
Perfect. And then when they're finished, how do they upload it, or where do they upload it, or what do they do with the information?
Yeah, they don't typically re-upload anything. So
Okay.
that data will always reside outside of the environment.
Okay.
And so what will happen is you'll get different iterations if anything changes to that information. So you'll
Got
have
it.
a forecast 1 or a forecast 2 type spreadsheet. And those very often are saved on local desktop machines, not central. They are saved. They might be shared on a network drive, but it's still kind of a hunt and find kind of process to find that information when you need it.
So I think I can already sense the answer to this one, but what do you think the most common pain point is within this process?
I don't know if I can pin it down to one common pain point, but I know that the fact that the inability to have real-time or refresh data at your fingertips is a real struggle. In addition to that, just being able to see these different ledger types together in a single report, always a very challenging process. So you can spend quite a bit of time simulating this information, and I'll show you a quick demonstration of I believe the report should look like and how much time it should take. But from my former experience, it would take me, an hour or more to assemble this information, which I can now do in just a matter of seconds.
Wow. Okay.
When you're dealing with Excel, and in most organizations' defense, they don't have a tool that can really assimilate all this stuff as easy as Excel, so they're forced to dump it into Excel and then spend time building it in Excel. The problem with that is you're spending all your time formatting and making stuff, creating it in Excel, but you're not spending any time analyzing the information.
Got it. What type of control is set into place within this workflow that you just described?
Yeah, in a traditional environment, there is very little control. Because once you get in that spreadsheet, it's in the hands of the owner, and they can pretty much do whatever they want. So if they don't like a number, sure, they can change that, or they can make a quick adjustment to it, which will typically happen, and then they'll try to remember to go back and make that change in the ERP environment if it's necessary. So it's very uncontrolled in a spreadsheet environment. And there are huge risks with that, typical spreadsheet risks that I think everyone is aware of.
Got it. So what are some options to proactively monitor that, but also to monitor your audit trail?
I think, the options that you have from a traditional standpoint are very few and far between. I think you have to begin to start looking at different tool sets that are out there that can enable you or empower you to centralize your information and store it locally so that everyone knows where to access it. And from there, you can actually restrict permissions or allow people to make changes or not, depending on how the settings are selected. So software such as Insight can very easily do that. And I think that's kind of the trend that you have to consider if you want to power more control over these processes.
Got it. So do you think you could give me a little sample of what you might be talking about with this monitoring program?
Sure. So what I have on my screen here is a typical example of what we demonstrate when we talk about end-of-year forecasting. And we're looking at it from just a single business unit perspective. And it can be done in consolidation or individual business units, but I've chosen to just demonstrate at the business unit level. We're doing it using our standard income statement. And this is an income statement that we would use at month end to do our regular reporting. Just importing that row definition into this report so that I can use it for my actual end-of-year forecasting. End-of-year forecast is actually a combination of different periods, different ledgers, and you can kind of see those up at the top here. January through September, I'm reflecting my actuals. Then after September, October, November, December, I'm reflecting a forecast. So what we're doing here is we're actually designing a report that utilizes two different ledgers, one of them a JDE ledger, and the other one is an Insight custom ledger that allows me to write information to it, just like you would a journal entry, but it's as easy as entering into something like a spreadsheet. So,
and if you were to use a spreadsheet in this process, how long does it typically take someone in a spreadsheet environment to do this annual forecast?
Yeah, I think it would probably, my best guess would be about an hour. The challenge is always, can you get the information at this level of detail and easily export it out so that you can just simply amend to that schedule and maybe add these different ledger types or actuals and forecast columns. You kind of have to use your imagination, but in Excel, it takes two data sets that you have to merge together into one. And we're doing
with
that
that pivot table that you were talking about.
Yeah, you have to basically take the actuals from J.D. Edwards, probably export them, dump them into some Excel tab that generates this report, and then the forecast section would be already keyed into Excel manually. So you have two different data entry or data points that are coming together in Excel, which obviously each month, if you're forecasting every month, can become pretty inefficient.
Got it. So in what we're seeing on the screen, is this Insight reporting, or what product is this that we're looking at?
Yes, this is Insight reporting initially, and I'm going to tell you the features of that, and then I'm going to expand with it using our budgeting functionality as well.
Perfect.
So here, that's just kind of the lay of the land for the report itself. The control mechanisms are up here in the top that I've sort of hidden from view until I want to use them. But the way that this report is intended to be utilized is there's a selector for each period, and you kind of see that up at the top of this report. Every month, the user has an option to choose what ledger type they want to display in their columns down below in the grid here. So the scenario is we're through actuals through September. Let's just say that we've closed the month of October. Now we want to reflect actual results for that month and then just view the combination of November and December forecast ledgers with my full rest of year actuals. So it's just as easy as going up to October, changing the ledger type from forecast Q4 up to actuals. And that's going to automatically update my column where you can see the header change to October actuals. refresh the data, or just hit run, and you'll see the new results.
So when you hit run, where are you pulling that data from?
Well, the actuals are coming right out of JD Edwards, all in real time. So,
Okay.
Theoretically, I'm doing this for closed periods.
Okay.
But I may want to reflect, if I'm in the month of October and I'm a financial officer, even though we haven't officially published anything, I want to know what we look like from our forecasting perspectives. I can run this during the month end if I want to, and these numbers will just update as people are posting to those accounts. So here we can see the combination of actuals through through December with my forecast ledgers. If I scroll over to the right, you can see that not only do I have quarterly calculations that add up the different combinations of ledger types, but I also have an end-of-year total column, which adds all 12 periods together to give me the total end-of-year estimate for our forecast. And then we've added some additional analysis looking at our original budget, which would have been 10, 11, 12 months ago. And then we're calculating a variance comparing our best guess end-of-year forecast to that original budget, and then also enhancing that with some variance explanations. So this is where kind of the insight budgeting kicks in. If something changes in your economic conditions, say in November, you know that your product A revenues are going to disappear. For whatever reason, you can't make shipments. We need to change our estimate. It's just as easy as going up to our budgeting function, enter budget, and making the changes directly to that line item and saving them to the custom ledger. So you'll see when the ledger is ready for input, the cells turn yellow. You'll notice I can't write over any of my actuals, so there's a security feature in place. And I'm just going to eliminate my product A revenues for the month. And I'm going to come out of enter budget, and that's going to save that information to the custom ledger. And at this point, it is now available for everyone to view who has access to Insight. At some point, you may choose you want to upload it from Insight into JD Edwards. We make that very easy. It's just a simple point and click.
Okay, so here's a question I have. So say that it really is the year 2006. Let's go back in time a little bit. And we're in the end of the year. It's December, and you're just deciding to purchase Insight. Is there an easy way to get all of this information that's backlogged from June, July, August, because you didn't have Insight then? What is the traditional...
We would install Insight in an hour, and then the whole bunch of templates that come with the program.
Okay.
We can install this particular report if you like it. We would, of course, want to construct an income statement for your reporting requirements, but from there we can pull in whatever data you require. So
you can go back in time.
Absolutely.
Okay, got it. So the security point that you're talking about is the fact you do have that audit trail because you're always, once you put those numbers in, they're always going to be there. Okay,
exactly.
So it's an easy way to show the auditors at the end of the year then? Okay, perfect.
In addition to that, sometimes people don't always want to just see actuals and maybe one ledger. You can choose whatever ledgers you have in JD Edwards or in Insight. So we can very quickly change what our views are and bring in that new information however we want. The other nice feature that we definitely need to point out here is our ability to write comments, because right now it's very difficult in any ERP to directly write comments in there and share them with others. Most ERP systems allow you to generate reports, but they don't allow you to interact with them. So we do here. We have drill-down functionality for actuals where we can follow links and go all the way down to transactions, or we can just write to this report and save it. Now, for me to write a comment, I again go up to my budgeting functionality and enter comments, and from here I can just say product C.
Did product C have issues this year?
Canceled.
Oh,
Yes.
They were canceled. Okay.
Very good. All right, so we're just going to save that in there, and we're going to come out of our comment mode and save those. Now they're saved to that report. So anyone who opens up this report, they will be able to view those comments, and if necessary, we can provide another comment column for them. There's basically unlimited columns here. Or they can just go in and amend the existing explanation as is.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for covering the breezing through your forecast. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that's good.
It's all good.
This concludes the podcast session. Please stay tuned to the follow-up sessions, Reduce Your Budgeting Cycle by 70%, and How to Plan Smarter.